Hey, this is Troy with another Workflow Wednesday. Welcome to the middle of June. Time flies. I think we know that. And today I want to talk about two things. You know, as I talk about now with Troy, I've said there's really two main themes for these conversations and Workflow Wednesday. Is I want to talk about what's happening in the business world right now and what's happening on the ServiceNow platform, the Now platform. And today is a mix of both of those. It goes without saying that if you glance across the news, you fill up your car with gas, the economy is under a lot of pressure. Call it a recession or not, but either way, there's tremendous pressure on the business world and on the economy. And one of the things that we find, particularly as we look at what ServiceNow offers to businesses, is the time is now to look at investing in digital transformation. Why do I say that? When pressure starts, that's when old school Rolodexes get cleared out. And one of the ways to look at it is you can invest now in looking at efficiencies and looking at how do you take that staff that is increasingly harder to find, harder to retain. How do you help them do the best work possible in your organization? That's taking some of those mundane tasks and finding ways to automate them. Use machine learning, use artificial intelligence, use ways that you can have a trusted system, as David Allen of Getting Things Done would say, right? I need to have a trusted system that I know where this work is going to go. In your digital transformation, if you look at your different processes, where in your organization, from your customers, your clients, through that front end, as they ask for more business, do business with you, as they ask for support, as they look at visibility to see how that work is going, as it progresses through to the back end, to the different teams that are engaged in delivering the value that your organization provides to the marketplace. ServiceNow is poised to help that flow of work go better and improve the experience, not only for your clients, but also for your employees. Investing in that effort to move from manual processes where you used to run down the hall to try to get things done to really having a trusted system that can really work across the enterprise to coordinate different systems, whether they're your custom interfaces or they're standard interfaces that you commonly encounter in enterprises. ServiceNow can reach out and engage with each of those to provide that consistent control tower, if you will, that looks across how work from the customers to employees can be improved. In a time like this, as pressures mount in the economy, investing in those efficiencies is going to be essential, because those companies that do so are the ones that are going to excel and survive. Those that don't likely fall back in the midterm, and as you look at the long term, very likely they'll disappear. And so yes, it's a tough time. Finding staff is tough. I've seen more and more companies say, man, I need staff. I've got more work than I have staff. That's a common theme. And ServiceNow provides a way to help address some of that. Find the right staff. Let them do the right work in your organization and find ways to automate the other work that would have kept them busy doing maybe non-essential tasks. Automate that. Invest in digital transformation right now and come out of this turmoil of the economy stronger, more efficient, and prepared for what's next. Because the pace of change is not constant. The pace of change is accelerating. And so invest now in digital transformation. And that is really where ServiceNow focuses. And so if you want some help in that, reach out to me. Love to connect you with others. At Third Era, ServiceNow is all we do. We are a growing ServiceNow Elite partner. We're nearing 700 employees. And if you think about certified master architects, there are a limited quantity of those. That, if you're unaware of what a certified master architect is inside of ServiceNow. If you look at the different education, different certifications you can get, if you climb that ladder as far as you can go, you can earn an accreditation called a certified master architect. There's few of them in the world, maybe over 200. Over half of them work at ServiceNow. At Third Era, we have 13 certified master architects and 3 certified technical architects. What that means is we have resources that come alongside you and can listen to your business needs, listen to your where you're at in your business, from your clients all the way back to your employees and the processes that are in between, and help explore together what digital transformation utilizing ServiceNow could look like. Reach out for me and let's talk about how we could do that in your organization. And if I can't help you directly, I'll connect you with someone that can. The other thing that I want to talk about today is I'm going to actually shift things around a little bit, because I'm going to move to the technical side of the house. As I've talked with different companies over time, one of the things that comes up is the concept of technical drift. And I've seen that show up in two different ways. One is drift of what you've implemented versus out of the box. Maybe you're moving away from some of the best practices in coding efforts. You're moving away from staying current with the patches. You're staying a little more isolated, right? And you deviate from best practice and out of box. How do you recover from that? The other place that I see technical drift is between different instances. Now, if you're unfamiliar with ServiceNow and the way that it typically works in a client environment, is there's different instances. The minimum would be out of a production instance and a development instance. More common is to have 3 out of development, test, and prod. But each organization can decide what's best. And there are many times where you could have more. You could have dev, test, prod, and a training instance. They could have development instances for different teams to be working in. But each of these instances have their own version of the ServiceNow software. And that needs to be managed so that production is the key, but those pre-production instances must be kept in sync. And I've met different companies over time, and as I've talked with different people, that your mileage still may vary, right? There is no definitive answer of what's the best way to keep these different instances in sync. It varies. The two extremes that I've seen, and I'll talk about both of them. One is a client that every time you go through a major release, you kind of have to get all of your instances in sync because they have to be upgraded to run the same software. And those major releases from ServiceNow come out every 6 months. So think about that scenario. If you had dev, test, and prod, and you update those instances 6 months with a new upgrade from ServiceNow, as your developers work, they try promoting things into test. Maybe that doesn't work. They need to re-promote. They need to move things into prod. Maybe they change some things here and there, trying to keep things in sync, but sometimes life happens. Over those 6 months, you can have pretty significant drift where prod is over here and dev and test might vary a little bit. That's harder to manage. The trade-off is, the goodness is that they're not spending time cloning back. It's not that complicated, but it is an effort. It does take time. The other extreme that I've seen is a client that really embraced much more of the DevOps or continuous improvement, continuous development type mentality, where their test instance in particular was cloned back, made identical to prod every weekend. Now, most of that is automated. So as teams worked in development, they knew as they tried to promote things that was done with development, they're ready to promote into test. They had 1 week to use test to go through and verify their testing, do user acceptance testing, or any other type of testing that they wanted, because that instance was going to be wiped back to match production at the next end of that week. It put a little bit of pressure on testing, but it also encouraged the teams to automate as much as possible in those deployment steps. They could promote update sets, run some background scripts or post-production or post-promotion scripts that would do other things that would often be done fingers on keyboard to automate it. That rigor helped them minimize drift because test was always something reliable. And in that instance, there was additional work both in making sure those clones worked, making sure that every time you had to do testing that spanned multiple weeks, there was multiple promotions. But what happened in that environment is their promotion into production was more often than not a non-event because they've tested their promotion into test in a very reliable manner in a system that they knew had not drifted from production. And so one of the questions I have for you is in the comments below, whether you find this on LinkedIn, on YouTube, or on Twitter, I'd love to hear from you. If you're using ServiceNow, what's your frequency of cloning back your different instances? Are you doing it once a week? Every other week? Every month? As needed? Every 6 months? Where in that continuum between every week and every 6 months are you as you're managing your pre-production instances? And if you're doing something more frequent than that, I'd love to hear how that's working for you. And more importantly, I'd love to hear what else you've automated. Remember, we talked about digital transformation. That transformation also affects our internal teams as we do development, as we do promotion, and we look at how we automate those steps. So there's less fingers on keyboard, but there's more dependence on watching that technology move in a trusted manner. So we know that we're minimizing drift, but we're also speeding time to value. As our business users see how ServiceNow can impact the way they do business, what happens more often than not is there is a growing backlog of need. Users coming out of the different parts of the business saying, I see what this department has over here. Can I have some of that? And we see that from the products that ServiceNow has brought to market. They've just came out and with the last release, procurement service automation, working very tightly with your procurement groups to manage that process well within ServiceNow. Again, it's just another example, but there are so many different things that span the platform to automate things. So, two things that come to mind. Let me change back to this camera over here. Two things that come to mind. Again, reach out to me. Love to talk to you. Love to connect you with other parts of Third Era or other ways I can help you. But practical tools, practical things you can get. Third Era has two different things that come to mind. One is our instance analyzer. If you look at the ServiceNow store, ServiceNow has an application store. Go out and search for it. The Third Era Instance Analyzer for a long time running has been the #1 rated app in the App Store. What it is it's an application that your administrators can download into one of your pre-production environments. And as you run it, it looks at how things are configured, how things are set up, and it looks for deviations from best practice. Now, I will say this, if you haven't run this application before and you run it, it may feel overwhelming because it will find a number of different things. Reach out to myself or someone else from Third Era, and we'll set up a time for our subject matter experts to walk through the output of the Instance Analyzer to help you understand where there are times where a little deviation from best practice might be acceptable, if not encouraged, but help you also learn how to prioritize which things really should be looked at. Maybe those are some security concerns. Maybe there's some other things that are going to make updates to future releases and future updates more difficult. But look at the ServiceNow Instance Analyzer from Third Era, put it in one of your pre-production environments and run it. And then also reach out to Third Era, reach out to myself, and let's sit down and go through that together and see how we could help your technology drift as you deviate from best practice. The other free assessment is maybe a little deviation from that, except in this world, cyber is such a concern. The cyber attack surface, if you will, the number of things in our enterprise that have IP addresses multiplies exponentially. With each one of those additions comes a vulnerability, a point that cyber attackers can jump in. Most organizations that we encounter either have or are looking to grow their cybersecurity practices. There are a number of different tools that can be involved. They don't all have to be ServiceNow, of course, but what Third Era has put together is a security hardening assessment. It's no charge, but we come in and look at the processes, ask some questions about which tools you're using, how they work together, how you identify vulnerabilities, enrich them, prioritize them, and address them to resolve them and keep that secure to harden your cybersecurity attack surface. If that's something that you're interested in, again, it's no charge. Reach out to myself or someone else from Third Era and ask about our cybersecurity hardening assessment. Again, it takes us a couple hours of your staff's time because I know they're very busy. And within a couple of weeks, it gives you a clear set of recommendations and roadmaps of things that you could do to improve your digital transformation around how you handle cybersecurity vulnerabilities and threats. Looking primarily at how vulnerability response is managed and how all of those components, all those things with IP addresses, CIs in the ITIL world, how your CIs are configured. ServiceNow does a lot of that with a capability called configuration compliance. Our security hardening assessment really looks at it from those two bases. How do we know what's in your environment? How do you know that it's configured to comply with your recommendations and your standards? And how do you find those vulnerabilities, prioritize them best, and resolve them as quickly as possible? So with those two things, reach out to myself. So call to action, really, what is your pace and timing for keeping your pre-production instances cloned back? Let me know. Love to start a discussion with you. Again, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Wherever you find this, add some comments. I'll be watching for them, and I'd love to hear from you. The other part is if you're wondering about what you could do to address cybersecurity better and harden that cyber attack surface, reach out to someone like myself at Third Era, and let's do a security hardening assessment for you and give you some recommendations, again, at no charge, because now is the time to invest. Find ways that in this turbulent economy, they can invest in looking for efficiencies in your organization and tighten security so that you don't end up suffering a security incident that could be detrimental. Again, thanks so much. This is Troy Pasola from Third Era, and thank you for tuning in to Workflow Wednesday. I look forward to hearing back from you, and we'll see you next week.